Good afternoon, and thank you all very, very much for coming. It is, as Margie said, it is so extremely important to hear what happened, because we did the same thing. We did not believe everything that we heard. Oh, it would never happen. I come from Czechoslovakia. Czechoslovakia was a small country. It was as liberal as the United States. No discrimination whatsoever. Nobody ever asked you. All the enterprise, there was nothing that stopped us. Unfortunately, that ended. My brother was in the university, and one day he comes home and he says, Papa, what happened? Suddenly they're asking me, you are Jewish? Till now, all I was a manual. Nobody even cared. Suddenly, they asking me, are you Jewish? And what are you so different? Suddenly, I became a conversation. But that what happened. We were in school, and we were walking with a button. Can everybody hear me? We were walking with a button. We will not give in. We were supposed to be prepared. What happened? When Hitler came to power, the first country he occupied was Austria. That was a German-speaking country, and they welcomed it in a way. The next country was Czechoslovakia. But what he said, he does not want the whole country. All he wants is Sudeten. Sudeten was a German-occupied, mostly German people. So what happened? We were literally sold by the British because they said, this is what we give him, and he said after that he will not go any farther. But he did not keep his word. What happened in March 1939, he just walked in from all sides of whichever was bordering German, Czechoslovakia. And in the audacity, he came and he went right to the Capitol and he opened the windows and he says, this is my country now. He called it protectorate. He was protecting us from what? From the Russians. After the occupation of any European country, every Jew had to wear the Star of David in yellow. You had to sew it on the sleeve and on the back so that you weren't seen that you are a Jew. It was always yellow, from the lightest yellow to the darkest. Every man from the age of 18 to 45 was taken to slave labor camp. Most of them never returned. As I said, after the occupation of Czechoslovakia, our life has changed drastically. We Jewish children could no longer go to school. I met my friend Olga, and she said, Judy, why weren't you in school today? Because I'm Jewish. But you were Jewish yesterday. She could not understand what happened overnight. After the occupation, they took all the men from, as I said, from 18 to 45. They confiscated everything that we owed. My father had a general business. They put in a commissar into the place, and my father could no longer go in there. We had a farm as well. They took all the cows and horses away. The big house where we lived in, we had to move out, and we moved in a little summer kitchen. But that was yet the better part, because after he occupied any of the countries, he took the Jews from their homes and put them into ghettos. Most of you know what a ghetto is. They dedicated one part of the place and kept them 30 to 40 families in one little house in a terrible, terrible condition. The men were gone already. It was predominantly women and children. In the part where I come from, the Carpathian Mountains, that part they gave it to the Hungarians, because prior to 1918, it belonged to the Austrian-Hungarian Empire. So not only were we occupied by the Germans as well, but also by the Hungarian Nazis. So it was a double whammy. After the occupation, the Jewish people had absolutely no right whatsoever. We were called Unmenschen, subhuman. But we were still at home. I come from a family of 6 children. My older sister lived in the same town of Jasina. She had 2 children, a 16-year-old boy and a 14-year-old girl. I was 14 like my niece. As I said, we could not go to school anymore. Her husband was drafted to slave labor camp, so were my brothers. Anyway, my next sister in line was married, and she lived in Poland. As long as we were still home, they took all the cows and horses away, but they left us 1 cow to have a little bit of food. My mother was able to save up some milk and some cheese and some butter. And once a month, she hired a man, a peasant, to go over to the town. It was about an hour by train to my sister, and bring some food. One day, he comes back with a satchel of food, and he said, "I regret very much. I could not deliver the food to Charlotte, but I witnessed her execution." What happened in Poland before up to 1942, the Germans had a quota of so and so 2,000 or 3,000 Jews have to be killed every single day. How did they do it? They gathered all the men from the town that they were supposed to take the people. They made the men go out of town, dig their own grave. The following day, they took the entire amount of 2,000 or 3,000 people, made them go out of town, made them get undressed to utilize the last piece of clothing, shot the children first, the fathers then, and then the rest of the mothers. So this is what, when he came back with the satchel, he said, "I regret so much. I could not deliver the food, but I witnessed her execution." There is a French priest, Father Dibord, you met him, and so we met him here. What he did, his grandfather was drafted from France, and he was killed in Poland. So when he grew up and after he graduated, he went to Poland and he found these hundreds and hundreds of mass graves. There are thousands, close to 2 million people were killed like that. But the Germans realized that this is much too expensive to spend a bullet on each Jewish person. It is too slow and too expensive. So what did they do? They went to Wannsee, that's about a half hour from Berlin, a small village, very elegant place. I saw it in 2014, I was there. Over a gourmet lunch with wine, they came to a solution, the mass destruction. So what did they do? They started to build gas chambers in Auschwitz, in Treblinka, in Majdanek, in order to be able to kill thousands of Jews at one time. And that's where they came up with the gas chambers and with the crematoriums. How did they do it so fast? They couldn't, it wasn't enough that they had the Jewish man building these buildings. I was in Auschwitz then when they were building it overnight with such a speed. So they paid overtime and triple time to people from the towns from Auschwitz and from Poland in order to build these gas chambers in a hurry. So many people, you hear about the gas chambers and all that, but very few people hear about the Holocaust by bullets. Getting back to my family, my next brother-in-law was married, and he lived in Belgium. After they occupied Belgium, my brother was able to get himself smuggled to England to join the Czechoslovak army and fight against them. My next brother, my only lucky brother of the family, he was able to come to the United States in 1939. My following brother was a dentist. He was taken to slave labor camp, was 3 years in the German slave labor camp, subsequently caught by the Russians, and was caught and went to sent to Siberia, from one hell to the other. I was the only one at home. I might have had a chance to go with the kinder transport. There were many, many potentials for people, for young children to go to England. And my father said, Judy, go, you will save your life. But I did not want to leave my parents alone anymore. Again, as I said, we were still home. Every day with different rumors. Today they are taking the older man away, which my father was at that point. Today they are taking children. The constant fear what is going to happen. We heard what's happening in Poland and in Ukraine and all that area. Until it was one day after Passover, it was in April, at 6:30, there were 2 SS men and 2 Hungarian gendarmes knocked on our window. You have a half hour, take all your money and take all your jewels and come. What do you take? And they didn't even allow a suitcase, only a satchel. My father took his prayer shawl and his prayer book. My mother said she said, I don't want them to kill me. I'm going to drink something. We convinced her. We said, Mommy, you always have time to die. I took my manicure, said that was my last birthday and we started marching. There were no wheelchairs, there was nothing. They had to carry the old sick people. We lived 6 kilometers from the town. We came into town and we were told to walk up to the cemetery. And I remember my father saying, how convenient. They're going to kill us there. They don't even have to bring us to be buried. That didn't happen. Within that 1 week, one person could go home and bring more money and more jewels. It's going to save your life. My parents didn't want to go, so I went back home. Everything of value was gone already. I had a beautiful German shepherd. Harry was his name. And I said, where is Harry? And the woman that worked for us, Dorothy, she said, he stopped eating and he died. We did have gold. We had jewels in, because we knew that one day we will have to leave. Perhaps for jewelry and gold, we might save our life. So I took it out from the underground, and I asked Dorothy to make a dough, put it in there, bake the bread, and bring it to the cemetery. She didn't do it. Hopefully she was able to keep it. Anyway, we were on the cemetery a whole week without any shelter, just sitting on the graves. After a week, we were taken to the railroad. And this time, it was a regular train. We were taken to a town of Hungary. It's called Mátészalka. There were thousands and thousands of people in that ghetto. We were about 30 families in one house, but there was shelter, there was a bathroom, and there was 1 meal a day. But we were still together with our parents. The young people were watching children, were cleaning the house, cooking, helping with everything. We were there 6 weeks. After 6 weeks, we were taken to the railroad. This time, we were put into cattle cars. I usually have a film to show, but unfortunately it wasn't prepared. So we were put into a cattle car. Probably all of you might have seen it on pictures or maybe the real one as well. We were putting 65 to 70 people in one of these cattle cars, like sardines. We were just able to stand. They gave us an empty bowl to use as a bathroom and one filled with water. And they closed it with an iron bar. We waited till the entire ghetto was emptied out, and we started riding. It took 4.5 days. It was the most horrible 4.5 days. No air whatsoever. There was a little tiny window. It's dark. You don't see anything. We started moving. The first night, a man dies. What do we do with the body? Put him in a corner. There was no corner. Women were giving birth in the dark. Children were screaming, they want water, they are hungry. There was no food. They told us to take a little bit of food left, maybe a few slices of bread. The stench was unbelievable. But what was the worst? The people went berserk. They went crazy. And they started hitting one another and screaming. The SS man said, if that doesn't stop, we will take all of you out and shoot you on the spot. So what did we have to do? We had to tie their mouths, tie their hands, and keep them quiet. If another person died, we were happy in a way because we had a little more space. Finally, it was the 21st of May, the doors opened, and we see men in the striped uniform running back and forth. And they give us orders. Women, line up in row of 5. Men, line up in row of 5. Children, they threw them out. We asked them, where are we? What is this? They said, this is hell. We see a big sign, Arbeit macht frei. Work will liberate you. Where are we? We see a band, men and women in the striped uniform playing classical music. Where are we? What is that? We see the SS man with the German Shepherd on a leash. They do not give the orders. The orders are coming only from the men in the striped uniform, all the Jewish prisoners. And we stand. There is my mother, my sister, my aunt, my niece, and myself, of a row of 5, and my aunt's 3 little children, 2, 4, and 6. There is my father, my brother-in-law, my uncle, my nephew, and another man. And we wait until the entire wagons were emptied out. Out comes this tall, very handsome man with the shiny boots. This is Dr. Joseph Mengele. He was called the angel of death. He determined who shall live and who shall die. He came to our row. He pointed to my niece to go to the left, to me to go to the left. We went to the left, and they went to their death. When I came in front of my father's row, he put his hand on my head, as he did every Friday night, to bless us. He said, Judith, you will live. These were the words that helped me go through what I went through after that. We walked up to a big building, 3 steps. We came into a room. There were chairs lined up. Behind each chair is a man in the striped uniform with a machine to cut the hair. We are all young women, young girls, young women. Yes, and I have to go back. As we were lined up on the row, the man in the striped uniform was looking at young people. 13, 13, 18, in every language, 14, 14, 14. Why is the 14? Why is it so important? Because if Mengele would look at a young girl and she looks tall and healthy looking, he will say, how old are you? If she said 13, she was going with her mother. If she said 14, she was able to go to work. He also announces, are there any twins? Step out. There was one woman from my hometown. She had a set of twins, and she said, yes, my kids are 13. So he said, it's okay, let them step out. What he did, he took the twins, and he put them in a hospital. They had a little bit of a better life, but the experiments that were done on the Jews, I have it on the film, on the twins, was unbelievable. He also announces, are there any pregnant women? You will have a wonderful confinement in a special place. And they stepped out. Anyway, so as we come in, we are told to get undressed, completely naked. And we sit down. If you have any jewelry, put it in a jar. And we sat down. The man in the striped uniform cut our hair completely bald. We had beautiful hair like young ladies now. We're completely bald. And we sat down. After that, we are given a little piece of soap, and we stand in front of a door where it says bath. In our case, it was water. In our parents' case, it was gas. After when we came out of the shower, we were given a gray dress. No underwear, just a gray dress. Nothing, a pair of wooden clog shoes, and that's all we were given. And we stand on line. I took one look at my niece and I said, Ida, you don't look so good. She says, neither do you. No hair. And we are waiting and waiting until the entire group that was picked by Mengele goes through the shower. And we started marching. Now we are in Auschwitz and we are walking to Birkenau. It is 1 hour walk. The entire camp is surrounded with barbed wire. If you touch it, you get electrocuted. So we started marching. On every fifth row, there is an SS man with a gun and an SS woman on the other side. There is no way of escaping. There is a tower, and a man on a high tower with a machine gun pointing at you. There was no way to run away, and where to? After an hour walk to Birkenau, we were we were standing in front of a wooden barrack, and we were 1,400 girls in one of these barracks. There were the shelves. It's hard to explain. It's almost like a bookcase, and only your face sticks out. Depends on 10 or 12 women, depends how big the koya was. That's what we called it. Only the ones on top had air. We were there for a little bit, about a half hour, and there is a siren. That's called Blocksperre. That means nobody can leave the barrack. Not that we could ever do anything without order. Within minutes, there is the most horrific smell of burning hair. It was so choking, it was unbelievable. And I asked the woman, a young woman that was there already years, and I said, what is that horrible smell? She said, these are your parents burning. As we went through the shower, our family went through the gas chamber and immediately through the crematorium. Because at that point, it was done with such a horrible speed, with such an efficiency. It was just unbelievable how he did it. Now we come into the barrack. A little bit about life in Auschwitz. You're being woken up. Excuse me, I'll take a sip of water. you're being woken up at 6 in the morning, and you go out for a roll call, zählerpell. You're being counted, and you stand in a row of 5 like this. You're being counted and counted again. There is no way of escaping. So she died overnight. So we have to drag the body out to be counted. Or they went berserk. Many of my friends went crazy. The first 2 nights, they went out of their mind. So they were taken away, and there was a record of that. So we stand and we are counted and counted again. Every other day, Mengele comes to do another selection. If you look pale, he will tell you to step out. So what we learned to pinch our cheeks in order to get some color. If he saw two sisters or a mother and daughter, he will take one away immediately. He announces it again. Are there any pregnant women? Step out, you will have a better life. Are there any twins? Again. He was looking for the twins and for pregnant women. And the twins, he did operations without any anesthesia, without anything at all. But the pregnant women, some twins survived, a very small amount, but none of the pregnant women. He did experiments on the fetus while the women were there. But there were a few women until we found out what's happening. So there were a few young women that were recently married, and they were pregnant. So what happened, that was later, but I don't want to forget to tell you that. When we were already in the slave labor camp in Germany, many of the women started showing that they are pregnant. So what did they do? If they found, it sounds terrible, they found a needle or an umbrella, and they tried to abort their child. It breaks my heart to even remember that, because I remember of 2 women from my hometown that they didn't survive. Anyway, so now after roll call, we are going, after standing hours, we are going to the bathroom. Big deal to go to the bathroom. Indeed it is, because you were given a few minutes. If you cannot do what you have to wait till the following morning, which is no problem, because the food intake is such. You get a little bit of black coffee in the morning, about this much. You get nothing all day long. You haven't got a spoon, you have nothing. Only that gray dress. In the evening, you get a pot of soup, which is made from turnip and thickened with bran. So you have no spoon, so you take a sip, you give it to the next one until everybody has one sip. And then if there is any left, you start again. But the first night, as we were there, before us was a girl who was coughing terribly. And when it came to my niece, she was next to me, she said, "Judy, don't take it. She might have TB. Just let it go." She didn't know that we have to wait another day to get a little soup. Afterwards, we got soup. We didn't care about catching something. Anyway, we get one slice of bread once a week, that thin. You can't wait to get it. If you have it, you could eat it up in a minute, but you do not, because you hold on to it. Suppose the next day there is no soup, no food. The hunger is so great that it is between the knowing that the transports are coming in every single day and the hunger. You pray to God, how can we bear it? Anyway, we were there 6 weeks in Auschwitz. How am I doing time, guys? I'll speak in a bit while you look. Anyway, that's how we were in Auschwitz. Every day coming with Mengele, not knowing what the day will bring. The hygiene is great. you get a shower every week, but with big fear, because if he picked too many people, then they never come back to the barrack. How many minutes?
10 minutes and then Q&A.
I'm sorry?
10 minutes and then we'll do Q&A.
Oh.
We'll do questions.
Oh, 10 minutes.
10 minutes.
Okay, well then, anyway, after 6 weeks in Auschwitz, we were taken to take a shower, and after we came out, we were given a small blanket. At that point, 2,000 of Czechoslovak girls, young women, girls and young women, we were taken to West Germany, to the town of Gelsenkirchen. There, we were working in a factory. Half of the 1,000 was working outside, and 1,000 was working in the ammunition factory. At this point, I was with the outside. We built houses, we built roads, we built bunkers. Very hard work for young girls and young women. After many, the bombs were coming. Many of them died out of hunger and out of infections. Our shoes had been broken already, so we walked actually almost barefoot with newspaper around our legs. After many months, we were told to go to the next town, which was Essen. There, those that worked outside worked in the factory at Krupp, making ammunition, and the others were outside. This time, I was inside. And what happened, a piece of that heavy iron fell on my left wrist and it broke. So after we came home, and the next day there was a transport for pregnant women or very sick people. You couldn't be sick longer than 2 days. If you were sick longer than 2 days, you were taken away. So at that point, the middle of the night, somebody pats me on the shoulder. It's SS woman Erika. She says, "Komm, du Kleine." She called me little one. I go, and she puts me in her little car and takes me to the hospital in Essen. And they put on a cast. I said, "What do I need a cast? I'm going to Auschwitz back." She said, "Don't ask questions." On the way back, she stopped off in the factory and she asked Mr. Miller. She said, "This girl speaks many languages. If the work has to be done by a Russian girl, by a Polish girl, by a Czech girl who doesn't understand a word of German, the work is not going to be done. So if she is taken away, your work will suffer." He gave her the letter, and I was saved. I wasn't taken away. We continued in Essen for many more months. Then we were told we are going on the death march. But it was literally a death march, because we had to walk 3 weeks from Essen to Bergen-Belsen. Anyway, but what was the worst? If there were 2 sisters, or a mother and daughter, and one could no longer walk and just lie down, or she died, we had to drag the one that could still have a possibility to make it to wherever we were going. We had no idea. Well, finally, after many hardships, we arrived in Bergen-Belsen. Anybody that survived the camp of Bergen-Belsen is going to live forever. Mountains and mountains of dead bodies. No control of anything. There is a SS woman giving out some food once a day. Today she's giving it out in that corner, so you stand in line and wait with that little dish. And next day you start already at noon waiting in that line, but she decides to be in that corner. And it was enormous. By the time you got there, there was no more soup left. The hunger was unbelievable. You're mostly adults, a few young people. You wouldn't believe it, that the men engaged in cannibalism. They literally did. They didn't cut a person that is dead, but they cut somebody who was dying. It was just nobody can understand hunger unless you really were there. Anyway, we were there. My niece is completely jaundiced already, and she said, Judy, I am dying. If you could get just one more morsel of food. The SS woman announced, if there is anybody that can carry dead bodies, we'll get a bowl of soup. I did get a young woman from my hometown, and we did get a bowl of soup, which we divided in three. Anyway, there were weeks where the SS men were gone and SS women were gone as well. So we ran to the place where the Germans kept their food, hoping that we can get some. We didn't know there were German civilians shooting at us. Many people would die yet 2 days or 1 day before liberation. Until one beautiful morning in the spring, it was April 14, 15, there were soldiers in a different uniform, and they were the British. They said, you are free. What a wonderful, wonderful thing to hear. They gave us everything. They gave us all the food that they had. And what we did, those that we ate everything. We could have eaten rocks. And what happened, more people died days after than before. Anyway, now we are free. So what do? The Germans tell us they had to take that part of Bergen-Belsen and burn it down completely. And they said, okay, once you will get better. It took 1 whole year to cure me till I felt healthy. There was fleck typhoid and TB, all the illnesses you can imagine. Anyway, so once you were cured enough and healthy enough, they said, you can stay in Germany in a camp, or you can go to your country of origin, or there was a Swedish Count Folke Bernadotte, and he invited many thousands to go to Sweden. My niece was alive. When I woke up from my high fever, she was alive. She chose to go back home. Hopefully she will find her brother, which unfortunately was killed 2 days before liberation. I chose to go to Sweden. After a year being sick, I was able to go back to school. I learned another language, and I had to stay in Sweden 3 years because my Czech quota was too high until it came that I could leave. And those of us that were fortunate to come to this wonderful country of ours, nobody appreciates and loves this country as much as we do. And thank God, and that God will, this country will be wonderful forever, ever. But unfortunately, what is so painful, that we see that anti-Semitism is blossoming again. This is why it is so important that we must do something about it. We'll have to, the teachers, we appeal to you, that you will teach the people, don't ignore it, find out everything they can, educate everybody that this anti-Semitism, indiscrimination and intolerance in every way should not blossom and should not continue. Not in this wonderful free country of ours. And I thank you all very much for listening, and I hope you have many questions.
Questions. So we have about 10 minutes for questions, and then I'm going to finish up with the teachers, and some of you can come up to me. So who has a question? You'll ask it, I'll repeat it.
Did you ever go back to your city?
No, I never went back to my hometown, but I do go back to Czechoslovakia. And I speak all over the world. I spoke in Germany and in Sweden and all over, wherever I can, but predominantly in the United States. I have been speaking for 21 years in Connecticut and in New York State.
How many did you do last year?
Last year I visited 54 schools and I reached 11,650 students.
You want to tell them how old you are?
And I'm 95 years old.
95 years old. Yes. Who could speak to 54
Old.
schools, period, much less 95? Okay, another question. Yes.
Will you write a book, or have you written a book?
You have a movie.
No, but I have made movie. I have movies done. No,
How can I get your movie?
Agnes
on
sells it.
Amazon?
I should have brought some. Agnes has them. She sells them in Amazon. I guess you could get
I
them.
think probably on Amazon.
What's the name?
Does it have a name, the film?
Yes, Judy, You Will Live. I think that's.
Judy, You Will Live. We'll remember that. Who else? Question.
Were you the only survivor out of your family?
No, my brother survived in the one in Siberia. My brother in Belgium, the one was in Belgium, he survived, but they're all gone by now because they were.
And one in the United States?
And one, but they're all gone. Yes, he survived. My sisters were murdered. My niece survived, but she died as well.
Yes.
How many languages do you speak, Judith?
Well, 7 or 8 or something.
I don't know if you know, do you know a woman by the name of Regina Shane? I think I met you at her house in North Haven. She was a Holocaust. Everything you said, she's told me. I know all about
I know so many people, but
David and her husband, she met her husband in Sweden.
Oh.
She was in the Bergen-Belsen March.
Oh, so she must have been together with me.
Liberated there.
Very possible that she wasn't together with
Regina
me.
Shane,
Yeah, that was her married name.
North Haven.
Oh, but probably.
What do you credit your survival to? I've been to Auschwitz, I've read many, many books, I've been to other concentration camps as well, and they're horrible. I mean, what is it inside you that, because I think when I go through those places, I'm like, I wouldn't have lasted 5 minutes.
I say a little bit of God's help as well. But what I think, when I went back to Auschwitz with 80 students with the March of the Living, people say, Judy, why do you want to expose yourself? But it was a wonderful thing. I was walking with the Israeli flag from Birkenau to Auschwitz, and I was there, and Hitler is gone. So that was something. When I went to all the camps with the students, and I explained what everything was, so that gave me more strength. I think that's it.
Anyone else? This is a rare opportunity. Yep.
Have you ever been invited to Washington, D.C. to speak to the fools that run our country?
No, I haven't. No.
What a shame.
No, I haven't. We'll see what the next president will be. Maybe I'll be invited.
Who's waiting for the next one? I think we should all make that happen. Yes.
When you were in the campus, were you ever able to find like a moment of happiness or anything to stay proud of?
So during your time in the camp,
Yeah.
did you ever have a moment of happiness?
Well, we became the people, the friends. We became family. Everybody was worried over the next one. So if he could save one that wasn't taken away due to illness, that was a glory. And I don't know how they knew it, but some girls knew exactly when there was Passover, when there was Rosh Hashanah, when there was Yom Kippur. How they knew it, I have no idea. No pencil, no paper, nothing. But they knew. So they say, today is Yom Kippur, you got to fast. Well, we were good at that. we were great in fasting.
Any, we got one? Yep.
What was sleeping like, and how much did you sleep really?
So what was it like to try to sleep?
Oh.
And how much sleep did you get?
Well, we had about 6 or 7 hours, but on a board, just on a board, and they had just that one little blanket, the little soft blanket. It was constantly cold. And not only that, When we were in the slave labor camp, our dress was dirty. So we got a little bit of water, a little bottle of water, and that was discounted, a little coffee, everything, but we had to save up a little water to wash the dress. We washed it, and we put it on from the body, the heat, to dry it. No human being can understand what one went through unless you hear somebody that left it through. But we made it, and we are here.
Yes.
You talked about resistance today, and I just was wondering if Judith knew or participated in any acts of resistance.
So during the teacher program, our focus was on what people did culturally and spiritually, what the Jews did to resist. So do you have a story, anything?
Well, that is a very, very good question. In fact, I was hoping somebody will ask. Because when I came to this country, and people were saying, well, how did you do it? Why didn't you run away? They had no idea what it was. There was no way of doing that. The Germans had such excellent, they knew exactly who was a Jew, who was a half a Jew, who was married to a Jew. You couldn't say anything that they didn't know. It was just unbelievable what they knew and how they did it. And just don't ignore anything. If you hear that it's going around, don't just let it go. It's going to go away. It doesn't. That's what it cost my father his life and the whole family, because he said it will never happen. He believed in all that. Convince yourself. When I speak to the student, I tell them, don't listen to what one says. Investigate, write letters, do something about it, and just don't let it go.
Yes. Yep.
Did you have children?
I have 2 sons and I have 2 granddaughters.
When you were raising them, did you have a fear of something like that happening while they were small? How did you raise them?
Not with fear at all. I felt very secure in the United States. I thank God in the morning and at night that I live in this country. I really felt secure. That's why at 95, it gives me, to hear that it's happening, I said, no, I must continue, and we all have to do our share. We see, if a child comes home from school and tells us something, do something about it. Don't just ignore it. It's not going to happen, because you are the ones that can do it.
Because we have to fight now. We had a parent who shared that her child, Jewish, had a death threat recently. We have to be aware of this. It's happening. And we have to band together and be allies and stand up on all kinds of issues. We must.
Absolutely. Do it. Do your best you can and all that. Just don't ignore it, for heaven's sake. And thank you all for listening. And I hope nothing like